So in the first State of Decay game, you were able to find a base to house your survivors. You could store vehicles there, build facilities like an infirmary or a library, and really just create a little haven in the middle of this zombie-infested apocalypse. But there were only really a couple of what most of us players of the game saw as good bases, and most of us usually just made a beeline to the massive warehouse and made that our base. The team at Undead Labs have been really putting a lot of effort into the base building side of the game for the sequel, and recently they went into a ton of detail about some changes they'd be introducing and just went some ways to shed some light on what we can expect in the upcoming sequel. So today what I want to do is go through and highlight some of the things they said with you guys. So let's get stuck into it. So like I said, in State of Decay 1 there were quite a few bases that players could choose to make their home. Most of us though, after doing some research, most likely ended up making the warehouse our base. It was the biggest, it had the most build slots, it was like the ultimate base in the game. Well, the devs did say there won't really be an equivalent of that in State of Decay 2. Yes, each base will vary in size, but that doesn't mean that bigger bases mean better bases. The way the devs put it was that instead of charting them in size, the better bases will simply be harder to make your home base. More likely meaning that there'll be a lot of zombies inside, or you'll need to put a lot of work into them to make them functional. I think that's really cool. Once you find the warehouse base in State of Decay 1, it did kind of make all other bases kind of defunct, which is a shame because there were some really nice and cool looking little bases. There were some quaint homes, but there was no point really living there. The fact that even small bases could be incredibly valuable in State of Decay 2 is definitely food for thought. One example they gave was of the container fort, which was showcased in the IGN first coverage. It's a relatively small base with regards to size and square footage, but it has the added perk of basically giving your base the watchtower ability for free, which will give you added security. That, and because it's a container fort, as you would guess, your storage capacity is more or less fully maxed out once you move in. So this idea of each base having its own pros and cons and their own personalities and quirks is really cool. Speaking of storage, by the way, the storage locker in your base, used for storing items, guns, etc., not resources, should have an unlimited capacity. The dev team mentioned that obviously it will have a limit for programming reasons, but normal players, normal people out there shouldn't be able to hit that limit. However, they did issue a challenge just to see if anybody could max it out. One super important fact about co-op and bases, which is kind of tied into the whole storage side of things, is that if you bring in a friend or a random stranger from the internet into your base and they go to your storage locker, they won't be able to just pillage all your items. When they open that storage locker, they'll see their items from their world. If you want them to have something from your locker, you'll have to go there personally, fish it out, and give it to them. Now, we know that the noise mechanic has been further developed to include the noise coming from bases now. The more people you have in your base, the more facilities you have, the more noise you're going to produce. Now, one thing a few people had been wondering though was whether it would be possible for players to know what level of noise each facility created. The answer is yes. If you check out your facilities, each one will have an associated threat level. That threat level meaning how much noise it is producing or will produce. That way you can better choose what facilities you want to build to ensure that you don't draw too much unwanted attention. Now, speaking of noise, if you do happen to create too much of it and fill up the threat meter, you'll fall victim to a zombie siege where hordes of zombies will fall upon your base in waves to try and eat all of your lovely survivors. Now, if you don't manage to fight the horde off, they will invade your base and damage some of your base's facilities, forcing you to have to spend in-game time repairing them afterwards. Now, you should know that if you don't repair these facilities, and you get attacked by another zombie horde, the broken facilities won't break more and disappear. Once a facility is broken, it'll just be broken. You can't really break it any further, which is quite nice. Now, we know that to get the most out of some facilities, you'll need to supply them with power and water. The thing is though, sometimes you won't have enough water or power to supply all of them. So what I think the devs were saying in one of their recent streams was that you can modify which facilities get these utilities, therefore enabling us as the kind of leaders of our communities to prioritize which facilities we think are more important at the time. Now, one thing that kind of ties into character traits, and which we'll look into further in a future video, is that in order to improve, upgrade, or in some cases even just build some facilities, you'll need a character who has a speciality in a certain area. So for instance, to build a solar array to get a source of renewable energy, you'll need someone with a knowledge of electricity, which you would kind of expect. Now, in some cases, you'll be able to teach survivors skills through skill books that you can find in-game, but obviously, one of the easier ways to do this, I would expect, is to simply have a survivor or find a survivor with a past profession or skill in that area. One other thing that the developers did address was moving bases. Now, I don't know if I fully understood what the developers meant when they talked about this, so if I do get it wrong and one of you knows more, do feel free to correct me down in the comments, and I'll be sure to pin what you've said so that other people can check it out and get the correct facts rather than my misinterpreted ones. But as we know, there are 3 maps that we'll be playing on in State of Decay 2. Now, what a lot of players had been wondering is, if we spend time and effort building up a base and making it really awesome, and we decide to move, do we have to start over again and collect all those resources over again and so on and so forth? Well, the devs did say that if we do move base, we'll be given almost like a refund of items that have been invested into our previous base, and a speed boost to help us get set up again, so certain facilities will take a little less time to build so that we can get kind of set up. Now, I'm not sure if we'll get a 1-to-1 ratio refund, or if it'll be, say, 10% of what we had invested in our previous base, but we'll have to wait and see, and see if they kind of go into that in greater detail. Now, one of the final pieces of info that I gathered from the dev stream where they talked about base building and bases in general was that you won't be able to name your base. It'll just have the standard name that it's called in-game, so you won't be able to rename the container fort to Boxy McBoxface or whatever. But folks, there you have it. Hopefully there's some info in there about bases and base building that you found helpful. One thing I'm curious to know though is, what kind of base would you love to see in-game? Let me know down in the comments. For me, I would love to see a kind of medieval fair type castle for my survivors to inhabit with a little moat and all that kind of stuff. I think it would be pretty cool, even if it is or does sound a little bit more like a Dead Rising feature. But in the meantime, if you want to be kept up to date on when my new State of Decay videos go live, please do hit that subscribe button down below and feel free to click the little bell. I try to upload a new State of Decay 2 video at least once a week. But until next time, have a great week folks, and I will of course speak to you all soon.